Namibia needs me and Namibia needs you. Welcome to the podcast that breaks down the current affairs and why it should matter to you. We chat about real impact, no fluff, no fillers. So let's get into it.
So, Janola, the ARP wants to lower the age of voting from 18 to 16. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so basically, I'm a member of parliament from the Affirmative Repositioning Movement, a political party in our National Assembly. I think they have about 5 seats, 5 or 4. I'm not sure, but I think they have about 5 or 4 seats in the National Assembly. One of their seat holders made a contribution in terms of bringing down the Namibian voting age from 18 to 16. So as it stands, according to the Electoral Act 5 of 2014, you can only get a voter's card from the age of 18. But this particular member of parliament feels that young people at the age 16 are actually very woke and should be allowed to, at an earlier stage, participate in democratic processes. Ethne, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I love it because the person who spoke on this,
Kalola.
Tuporti Kalola, actually used some science-backed data and arguments saying, these common arguments that young people are too young, uninformed, or easily influenced, which I've also heard in response to the suggestion, these are not scientifically proven worries. Yeah. On the contrary, countries such as Belgium, Malta, Austria, and Germany, who have reduced the age of voting down to 16, report long-term civic engagement, something we're all about, as well as improved voter turnout, something democracy should be all about, right? Yeah. So there's data to support the idea that it's a very good thing for the country if we let our young people vote from the age of 16. And no, they aren't ill-prepared and shouldn't be easily influenced.
Yeah, and I mean, where we're in a society where there's a lot of voter apathy, getting them young should be the priority. Ethne, you'd actually be surprised to know that, particularly for the elections that we have this year, the regional and local authority elections, often after 1 o'clock on election day, regional and local authority elections are so quiet because people don't really place value on them. And that is also maybe why when we encourage people to vote, even from a younger age, we already create a culture that this day is important and that you must participate, because already we see that now there's so much voter apathy happening. But if you get them young, if you target them young, that way you are able to secure a voting generation, which is what we need, especially now, seeing how only 38% of registered voters in the last years, in the 2020 regional and local authority elections showed up.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you're saying to someone who's young, listen, your voice matters, please be involved, it really gets you in for life.
Yeah.
Absolutely a great thing. I definitely support this motion, and I know there are people who are concerned about it, but yes. Onwards.
So expect a breakdown of key policy issues, latest news on contemporary social issues that are currently happening in Namibia, and for us to create a very interesting story around that with a core aim of having you involved and showing you how you can meaningfully contribute to your society.
All right, moving on to our second story. Wow, this story, there's been so much emotions around it, so much speculation on the story, but it's a story on the Namibian on the 9th that spoke to the arrests made by the Anti-Corruption Commission with different executives, former executives of NAMCOR, as they engaged in different corrupt activities. Ethne, please, if you can give us a little bit of background on that.
Not much to say. I know that NAMCOR is a parastatal. We have a number of parastatals. The concern with parastatals is always that there is room for manipulation, especially when it comes to petroleum, where the stakes are very high. Yeah. We know that this was in the news cycle a lot last year with the individuals mentioned implicated or involved in some extremely worrying developments. Right now, the ACC has finally taken a stand and arrests have been made. So that's a positive sign for me, Janola. It means the ACC is doing their job. Yes. It means there is a sense of accountability. It reassures your average citizen that we can rely on our government instruments to hold one another accountable. That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. No, I think for me, the upside is that at least this time around, we didn't hear about the country's corruption on WikiLeaks or Al Jazeera.
Okay, so we caught our own corrupt officials this time around.
Which means that though there's still so much that needs to be done, the instruments that are in place are working. And these are high-level arrests with a suspected amount of about 480 million that has been fraudulently used or abused by these particular individuals. Namely, the former CEO of the organization, its finance manager, its procurement officer, the whole team has been arrested. In fact, as we speak, they're currently in trial asking for bail, and the state is saying they are a flight risk. But let's see as the story develops how that will go.
But just to inform our listeners about these instruments, what is the ACC, Janola? What is its job? How independent is it really? And how effective has it been in recent years?
All right, so basically ACC is a watchdog, what we call a state watchdog. This is a state and institution that is responsible for curbing corruption. So their role is to investigate corrupt activity, prosecute those that are found, contravening the Anti-Corruption Act. So basically their core mandate is let public funds not be abused, let public positions not be abused for self-gratification. So as an institution, that is their primary mandate. Yeah.
And how effective have they been in recent years?
So in terms of their effectiveness, it's highly speculative, of course. But my feeling, Ethne, is this. A lot of time as Namibians, because we always create an impression that nothing works in Namibia, it creates apathy amongst people. Then people don't want to participate. If we say ACC is useless, ECN is useless, these guys are just chopping money, we, by spreading those notions, create an impression that systems are failing, thus making it hard for people to participate and therefore have trust in this system. So yes, we know that there are challenges and that we know there's definitely still more that needs to be done. However, thumbs up for the great work that they have done in terms of arresting these individuals, because people don't really understand what are the consequences of corruption. And maybe that is what I want to look at a little bit. In terms of the economy, you have reduced economic growth, because that 480 million could have been reinvested in another area of the state to help the poor. We are looking at increased income inequality. For instance, oh my God, shocking. What happened was the finance director at that time, when she started working for NAMCOR in 2018, as per the article, she was getting paid 80,000 a month. That's good money at her level. At a parastatal, it goes by. But by the time she resigned 2 years after, she was getting paid 180,000. That's more than 100% increment. For me, that is criminal activity. But oftentimes how we see in Namibian government is that people will use the correct procedures, get it approved by the board, get it approved by the minister, and then they think it's okay. But it's completely unethical. How do you justify a 150% increase in someone's salary over 2 years? Not to talk of the organization could have used even half of what she was getting, employ more young people, empower them, to reduce youth unemployment. But just imagine one person using the system to enrich themselves like that. Though it is legal, it is completely unethical. I think that kind of behavior, we should really maybe have an ethics commission that looks into these kinds of government decisions. That can someone increase their salary by 150%? And what kind of board? Well, obviously a board of your friends and those that are also eating will approve such a thing. But you see, corruption, it even weakens the institution itself. Because that money, they could have used it to open more service stations. NAMCO has service stations, right? They could open more service stations, do more in terms of helping the people. And not just that. This kinds of corruption means the loss of tax revenue. Because if the money is going directly into someone's pocket, it can't go through instruments through which it can be tax deductible, and therefore further weakening society. But speaking of society, the social consequences of corruption. And it's the one that I was talking about, erosion of public trust. People will no longer trust in these institutions. Why? Because they feel like, these guys are all just eating. So it creates a sense that everything is failing. While sometimes it is not, and it's just individual actions, And not to talk of the increased poverty. I think when people do these things, they are often oblivious about the long-term or the, the ripple consequences of abusing state funds have on the normal person, on the provision of health services for that person, on the provision of land services for that person. Because what now happens is that the moment you pocket that money that could have gone for state development, you have disadvantaged a child. You have disadvantaged a pregnant mother, who needs that health facilities. Sure, that particular story, like I said, it's been very emotional because we just don't understand why individuals would want to enrich themselves like that. Yeah.
Oh, well, we do understand why. But, what you're also saying, it's individuals. But when things like more than 100% increase can happen over 2 years for a salary, and to that level, it is indicative of it being systemic because, as you said, it has to go through all the correct channels and all those channels allow
approved,
it.
yeah.
And, we've spoken of many of these types of stories where the correct channels are used to do things that are against the mandate of the people approving it, that go against looking after the interests of the people. That does speak to a systemic problem as well.
Yeah, no, really. And when you look at it, when you have a lot of institutions many of them are like that, people will cease to trust in government. That's why people don't vote, because people just genuinely don't care. Because in our eyes, in the eyes of the layman, it's like, no, but man. How could these people do that, man? Like, how is that even possible that someone will sign off on that? So seeing those kinds of ridiculous things, people often are just like, you know what? Let me just live my life, take care of my family, end of story.
Yeah, exactly. But that's also what the person who's corrupt is doing. Janola, arguably the most exciting story of the week, the next one on the price of electricity.
This podcast is designed for engaged citizens, curious minds, and anyone who just wants to get a better understanding of what's going on in Namibia. If that sounds like you, subscribe.
Yeah, so basically what is currently happening is that the Namibian released a story, earlier this year, where they sort of painted a very, very daunting picture. And the front page basically said 38 units for $100 of electricity.
So what does that mean? Paint that for us.
So basically it means if you buy electricity for $100, you only get 38 units.
And how long does 38 units last you?
Okay, well, for me plus mine, I buy in bulk. So if we buy like 900, that lasts us for what? One month? 1.5 months? Yeah. But yeah, that means something round about 100 should last you a week, maybe more. But in this case, that 900 would have lasted me for 2 months had I gotten more units out of every dollar. And for me, this is very staggering because in terms of service delivery, electricity is a basic need. Kids need it to study. Parents need it to cook.
That's the point.
We can't overemphasize,
This news story came up because there was a consultative meeting between the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Economy and Industry on the one side and the Productivity Task Force on the other. So there's a group of people who are like, the effect of expensive electricity is that Namibia is less of a productive country, to your point.
Yeah. So Alpindi is of the opinion that, and he actually puts it quite well. He said, sometimes the high cost of electricity can be attributed to the greediness and lack of action by management and those who are in charge of these resources.
Case in point being that we have not developed a base load power plant in Namibia for years. Which contributes to our dependence on other countries. But then you and I came up on another exciting idea, which is the fact that we have not developed nuclear power, which is something, when this was being discussed in Parliament, was mentioned by government as a future plan that's going to take us out of this quagmire, as we can develop nuclear power, which is a clean baseload source.
Yeah.
And that is disturbing to us. Why, Janola?
Because according to the World Nuclear Association, Namibia ranks 3rd largest exporter of uranium. Now,
Namibia is the 3rd largest exporter of uranium in the world. Which means that we provide how much of the world's energy?
11% of the world's electricity. Oh my God.
How?
Oh my God.
How?
And we are here.
And we are here.
$100 for 38 units.
Okay. So I don't know how to let that sink in enough.
Yeah.
That we are such a massive global player
Yeah,
when it
in
comes
terms
to
of
uranium, which is one of the cleanest, one of the safest, most efficient ways to produce electricity.
Yeah.
We are in possession of that insane amount of power.
Yeah.
We're paying to such a level for electricity that we can't have adequate productivity in our country. We got very excited about this because, they're saying the future of Namibian power supply looks positive, but only if we start building our own generation capacity.
Yeah.
For how many years have we been exporting uranium?
Yeah.
We still don't have our own generation capacity, Janola.
No, for years, even prior to independence, we've been exporting uranium.
We are trying to educate change influencers. We are trying to educate people who are involved in their community. How do we get involved in terms of this, Janola?
Okay, first of all, my feeling is that yes, it is very costly and it's a very specialized industry in terms of creating, setting up a nuclear power plant. There are so many regulatory frameworks. But my feeling, Ethne, is that shouldn't stop us from moving in this direction, because what that will reversely do is we can now turn our raw material. And not to talk of, after uranium is extracted, the electricity is made, there are those byproducts that remain through which other things are made.
Many other industries and markets.
Many other things that are used in key mechanical instruments like phones, cars. So the idea is that we should, as a government, really relook what we want to do with our raw materials and not just export them like that, but to be able to export the finished product, and then we put our price on it, so that not only will we have a louder voice in terms of the industry in itself, but we will stop exporting and stop suffering with load shedding, things like that.
Janola, there have been many kind of noises made by our government, especially recently, to have a move in this direction of taking greater ownership over our natural resources and processing it locally instead of selling it in raw form. How does an average Namibian citizen support this?
Okay, I think the best we can do is just in terms of advocacy, promoting the urgency of this matter, and also maybe ask for government for more transparency in terms of where are we, what is being done.
Yes, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing to get this done?
What are we doing?
You're saying you're going to get it done, but
Yes.
you have been.
Yeah.
So now what?
Like, for instance, when I recently attended the State of the Region address, we saw, schools were renovated, labs were built, bridges were built, what was fixed, kids got school bags, the council had done so many good things. But I sat there and I wondered, when? So how is so much good happening, but we don't know? So I think more needs to be done in terms of government effectively communicating with people and saying, colleagues, this is what we are doing. This is how far the process is.
So which of our listeners is writing a letter to the Ministry of Information and saying, we want an update? What's happening with the development of local uranium production?
Yeah, like regular,
not
consistent.
Production. What's the word I'm looking for?
Is it exportation or
consideration
of the setting up of the plant?
Let's use our own uranium to generate our own
electricity
capacity.
Yeah, like I said, I know obviously it's a very, very skilled sector, like it's a niche thing, but it can be done. Bring in experts, set up the thing. You see, this is also how, if I can use an example, Saudi Aramco, the world's most profitable company, is a state-owned enterprise from Saudi Arabia, and they produce oil. They are owned by government and they are run by government, and they are the world's most profitable company. But they didn't start themselves. Americans came, did their thing, did the drilling, did the water, and then they say, you know what, thank you, can we buy you out?
Not sure if we should use that as an example, but yes.
But the idea is just that let government take our own agency. Let us move in directions like that. Not necessarily that resources must all be owned by government. No, there's room for private sector, but that government must take ownership. I mean, that is just an example of taking ownership and doing something that benefits your people.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you. So I hope that motivates everyone to try to get involved and push for some greater accountability, greater
and transparency
to move us in the right direction. Thank you very much, Janola.
Yeah. So on that note, thank you so much, Ethne. Much, much appreciated. Great conversationalist. Nice to be with you.
As always, Janola. Thank you.
All right. Until next time.
Cheers.
And that's a wrap. But the conversation does not stop here. Visit our website, join our socials, and stay connected to the stories that matter. Until next time.